Hey, fellow nerds and geeks. Thank you so much for tuning into the Hall H Show podcast. Aaron Nabuz here, and along with my co-host, Alex Benedicto. What's up, Alex?
Hey there.
We are the voice of independent creators, and we also love connecting with fellow content creators like Leonard Sultana, the Englishman in San Diego, and Alyssa Franks from Friends of Comic-Con. Together they host the weekly YouTube live show, Cup OT SDCC, though that may be changing, and I guess that's something that we'll touch a little bit later on the show. Thanks for coming on the show, Leonard and Alyssa.
Thank you very much indeed.
And,
thanks for inviting me. Inviting us.
Sure.
Or like the fact that you call me the Englishman in San Diego. Someone called me out on that in Hall H actually this year.
Oh, really?
And say, "Oh, you're the Englishman." I went, "I'm absolutely certain I'm not the only one in the room. I'm certain there's more than one of me." But yes.
And we're recording this at the historic Cortez. Unfortunately, we couldn't go into the room where they originally had that one. Was it back in 1975?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was hosted somewhere else for the first year, I believe. I think it was at one of the other hotels.
U.S. Grand.
Yeah, the U.S. Grand. But certainly from 1973, I believe 73, for a large portion of its early history, yeah, it was hosted here at the El Cortez, the top of downtown. I believe it's the second oldest building in San Diego. I actually thought it was this ornate and this pretty when they actually held the convention here, but I have been informed it really wasn't. It was very much a hotel in disrespect and disrepair. But at the end of the day, it's a nice venue. It was a small, intimate ballroom. You could easily walk around it with no tables in it in like 20 seconds, and it's stunning to know that the legacy of talent that was in the room.
Nice. Alyssa, how are you doing?
I'm well. Enjoying the lovely San Diego weather. Very humid.
Seeing as how you're going to be living over here, I mean, I'm sure you're acclimating pretty well to it so far.
I am, actually. I'm really enjoying it and looking forward, making my next moves, and planning out where I'm going.
Nice. I guess we can sort of start with both of your origin stories. Like most of our superheroes, they all have origin stories. I mean, what were you like at 11? What were you into growing up? I guess we can start with Alyssa.
I was I probably wasn't very typical, being a hippie kid in northern Maine. I was into the comics, a lot of DC, although I did collect a certain amount of Marvels. I do have the first Black Panther, so I'm pretty, looking forward to getting that one slabbed. A lot of science fiction, heavy reader. There weren't a lot of people like me. I was kind of the odd one. So high school was tough, like it is for a lot of geeks. Unfortunately, but I made it through and left a year early to college. And then I started meeting theater people and really started to come into my own and figure out who I was.
Leonard?
Well, I moved from Southampton to Yorkshire when I was 7. So when I was 11, it was just a case of finding my feet and finding new friends. Very big into my comics. So DC, Marvel at that point, but I was reading comics from when I was just a kid crawling around on the floor and using crayons against the wall kind of thing. So no, I was reading typical kids comics in the UK, which would be Beano, Dandy, Wizard and Chips, that kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, progressed into 2000 AD and Disney and Marvel. Sci-fi I got into because we had some family friends who had a big sci-fi collection. When we used to go visit, he would lend me a book each time we visited, which was say once a month or something. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was brought up on sort of like the big boys, the Heinleins, the Asimovs for the world, and yeah, it was and E. Doc Smith, and he kind of sent me off into some really strange directions to the point where I think let's think, if you're saying 11 now, well, that would be, a year later is when I went on, I remember a family holiday. We went down to Cornwall, and it was the year that Blade Runner was released, and on the book spinner in a beach shop. There was a paperback for Blade Runner, which was Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and to get hands of that on that book when you are age 10, that will seriously fry with your brain. That will seriously...
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting to me how all of how we are really a product of the people that came before the science fiction the science fiction geeks in the 50s and the 60s who, gave you that book and said, hey, you should read Clark, or you should read this book, and these are the classics.
Yeah.
And to have that grounding is priceless.
So yeah, I started young. I mean, I wouldn't even say that I really understood it. I mean, I seem to remember being given a copy of Hitchhiker's Guide by Douglas Adams very early on, and there's a joke in the first opening prologue which I completely missed until I was trying to explain my love for this book to a teacher, and the teacher turned around and said, "Okay, do you actually understand that joke?" And I went, no, and then they explained it to me, and I went, I need to go back and reread everything I've ever read in case I've missed something. So yeah, I kind of poured over stuff, but a little bit like Alyssa, a little bit odd one out, but you make friends and you kind of grow into yourself as you meet new people, as you live and develop.
So would you say that unfortunately Anthony Bourdain passed away quite recently, and I know that from his sort of experiences, he sort of counts his trips to France, like his first experience eating oysters, as probably what set him on the path of becoming a chef. Now, you mentioned Blade Runner, and Hitchhikers. Would those be the quintessential pieces that sort of put you along this path?
Wow. I can't actually. I've tried to do that recently, to kind of pin down any kind of like linchpins of my geek.
It's when you mentioned linchpin, because that's the name of the beer that we're drinking.
Oh, well, there you go then. Yes. Okay. Every time I say the word linchpin, then we have to take it. There you go. So,
cheers.
Clink,
cheers.
clink.
Chink, clink.
Clink.
So the linchpin of my as he takes another slurp. No, actually trying to work out what those initial...
Those touchstones.
The touchstones were. I don't think I can't. I mean, I even think of the first two really big graphic novels which my mum bought me, which I'm certain that she bought me just because she was in W.H. Smith's or whatever or Woolworths in the UK, and just Leonard might like that. It's £5. I'll give him that. And it was like the Tragan Empire, which is a major book. There was like The Star's My Destination, which was Howard Chaykin. That's hardcore. That's serious stuff. I mean, copies of that now go for like $100 on eBay. It's massive, and it was just bought for me because it had pretty pictures in it, and Leonard might like it because it's got spaceships. But actual touchstones, it all kind of it comes together as one big gloopy mess. And if that's anything a description of me, I don't think I can find a better one. A big gloopy mess. That's me.
For me, it was. I had to say it was probably a lot of Heinlein's work. "Stranger in a Strange Land," that was a real touchstone for me. Just being somebody who is out of touch or out of sorts, and all of Heinlein's books, of course, leading up to his more complicated later works were of great import to me. Once I got into college, Lucifer's Hammer with Niven and Pornell was huge, primarily because of the post-apocalyptic genres that it portrayed, and of course that always fed into college. How those go. How all of that goes. The world is ending. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh no, help!
I found it interesting that certainly reading science fiction as a kid, and then reading like the big two, the DCs and the Marvels of the world, and you kind of recognise that they're also getting the same kind of through line as well. I mean, the first big event series that I read, to my eternal shame, is DC's Millennium, which was it was awful. What an awful tie-in book that was. But I mean, you read that and you spot some Arthur C. Clarke in there. You spot some Asimov in there, and you go, right. So these comic book writers were reading the same kind of things that I was reading growing up as well. And you see certain touchstones in the other things that you kind of pick up on.
The Foundation trilogy,
I struggled with that. I struggled with Foundation.
Oh, I loved Asimov.
I really did. I was
always hard sci.
Well, I read the peripheries of Foundation because there were a couple of tie-in books that Asimov did, and I read them as like the detective stories and stuff. I struggle with Foundation.
Yes.
Dune I did all right.
Yeah, well, Dune. Did you ever read any of Lem, L-E-M, Stanislav Lem? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was.
This is where you two are looking at us very confused. Yes. As we're going deep into sci-fi now.
Old, hard sci-fi spaceships.
Right.
Robots.
Yes. Moving on, I think is the question.
Well, I definitely need to get more into sci-fi and explore that world a little bit more. I mean, as a kid, I did read like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, so I found that book pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great, from my remembrance, and I haven't read it in a long time. That's a great kind of examination of of a different culture of just trying to reestablish and establish and that type of thing. Like I said, it's been a while since I've read that one.
I read that about 2 years ago, and what I really found interesting about Brave New World is it actually reads contemporary. It reads like it's been written in the last couple of years.
Good.
Contemporary use of language, contemporary slang, and the way that the sentences flow.
Well, just how events could evolve could still happen the same way.
Sure.
Yeah. How were conventions like growing up for you, or relative to where you grew up in your area? None.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. We're talking the 70s. The early 70s in northern Maine. There were no conventions. I was lucky if I could find a comic book, let alone a convention. Or for other people that read comic books.
What about comic book stores?
Maybe the drugstore would have a couple of books, if I was lucky. So I really didn't get into, so it was really science fiction. That was my only outlet because it was in the libraries. I picked up some comics. I probably didn't get seriously back into comics until I moved to Boston in the mid-'80s. Yeah. So, and then there was a comic book store that I could go into, and it was really cool. It was really cool.
For myself, it was because I was reading comics which were bought for me by my mum and dad. From like local news agents, and that's where we used to be able to get comics in the UK. Certainly, like there was the Marvel UK brand, which were reprints, oversized reprints of American comics. So Hulk Weekly, those kind of books were kind of like. And 2000 AD. 2000 AD is the big one for me because that was available in news agents. That was the W.H. Smiths used to stock comics as well, so they were relatively easy to get hold of, but an actual comic book shop, I don't think I really encountered one of those until I was into my late teens. I mean,
while you're thinking, let me go back to seminal events or books.
Sure.
I want to just put a shout out to the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series of the 60s of the Neil Adams.
Yeah.
That I remember picking up on the newsstand in New York City, and it's going through the 60s and the draft burning cards, and going to protests, and throughout that whole time period, and that was mind blowing to an 8-year-old.
I think that's an important piece because I think there's a part in there where someone says you've protected all these other people from like different planets, but I think it was a black person saying, but you haven't protected me, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. Because I was living in the Lower East Side in Alphabet City in New York in New York. And my babysitters, I didn't understand my babysitters because they were speaking in a different language, and it made life interesting. But my parents and they could communicate, and
yeah. I mean, the question you asked was conventions. No, I had no experience of conventions at all. Even up into possibly my early 20s. My first my first pop culture convention was I was a DJ. That's how I've been a DJ since I was 18.
Then a UK DJ or something.
In the UK, yeah, doing pubs and bars and weddings and birthday parties and all that kind of jazz. And I was doing a bar where I met who is now my best friend, which is Neil. Not Neil Williamson. This is Neil Sykes, another one, a non-convention going guy. But we kind of bonded over our love of Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh, nice.
And I seem to remember, like, 2 weeks after meeting him, and for some reason I swapped telephone numbers with him, and he rang me up at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Right, there's a Star Trek convention in Leeds. Like 15 minutes on the bus. Come on, let's go. And we ended up going down, and that was my first pop culture convention, wandering around and seeing people dressed up as Klingons and sort of discovering. Yeah, to be honest, I look back at that first convention and I see it's the landscape is exactly the same as conventions are as I know them now. So they pretty much set me on my path on that one.
So Leeds, that's where Thought Bubble is, right?
It is indeed, yes.
That's one that I definitely want to check out someday.
It is. It's the largest comics and arts-based convention that the UK has.
I have an idea. We'll go over there and we'll terrorize Leonard for the next
You will not terrorize me.
And we will stay with him. And we will insist that we stay with him and his father.
I like the fact that she thinks that that's going to scare me. I have no problem with it. I mean, Thought Bubble has developed from being held in the basement of the Leeds Town Hall, which is... Leeds is one of the largest cities in the UK, so it's a pretty big and ornate town hall in the city in the north of England. But it then grew out of that completely very quickly. It then moved to the Royal Armouries, which is a museum just on the outskirts of Leeds. It's outgrown that, and the city has now supported it, where it's now moved into the town centre again. But it's almost like San Diego Comic-Con for a couple of days, in that it is somewhere with multiple venues around which you then, it's 4 rooms of Artist Alley, effectively. It's the largest Artist Alley technically I've ever seen, and just the amount of talent that's in there is just incredible.
Speaking of talent, my friends at Poster Posse went, I think, this year.
They did indeed.
Yeah.
Hopefully they came back with some good stories. Hopefully they enjoyed themselves.
I'll have to talk to Don sometime soon. What was your first? What year was your first San Diego Comic-Con for both of you?
Away you go.
So my first convention was San Diego Comic-Con. Yes. So I kind of, and both feet, and I took my 10-year-old son, Lewis, who across country, and said, "We're going to do this," and he, to his credit, followed. Didn't freak out. I think one of my favorite stories about my first convention was I took Lewis to a Jeff Smith panel with Bone. Actually, there's a couple of really good Lewis stories, but with Bone, for the book, his trade paperback series Bone, and he got up to the mic, because that's what he does, and said, "So, Jeff, how did you come up with the dream sequence? You know, the one where they're in the cave and there's all this smoke and it like makes the dreams?" And Jeff was like, "I think you're going to have to ask your mom about that one," where that came from. The whole audience broke down in laughter, because of course it was illegal substances at that point, and he didn't want to be be accused of polluting the minds of youngsters.
Even though that's exactly what he was doing with his book.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We went up for a signing the next day, and he recognized Lewis, and he looked at me and he said, "Did I do okay?" And I was like, "Oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Thank you. You did perfect." Because it is. So that was my first convention, was San Diego Comic-Con. Didn't know what to expect. It was before there was any problems with ticketing.
What year was that?
The same year you went.
Okay. Fair enough.
Absolutely. And unbeknownst to me...
So we're talking about what, 2010?
2010.
Oh, 2010.
Yeah,
okay.
2010. And yeah. So that was my first year. I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, I stayed over by Qualcomm and took the train in. Because that's how I traveled at that point, was just,
For myself, it was something, San Diego Comic-Con was the first, it was 2010, it was the first time I'd been on vacation to the US, first time I'd been to San Diego, first time California, so it was all very new. It was a new thing, but I knew about Comic-Con through reading film magazines like Empire magazine and seeing clips on YouTube and hearing about this mythical, huge sort of like collective of nerds.
Well,
and
correct me if I'm wrong, but you spent your honeymoon.
No, that was the thing. It was the centerpiece for my honeymoon.
Okay.
So yeah, we got married in 2010. And I basically asked Caroline, "Would you be interested in going to Comic-Con?" And she agreed almost instantly, because we've definitely found each other. The joke is that we're glad that we actually did, because no one else would have us. We came to Comic-Con again, not knowing really what to expect, and it really did kind of knock us for six on that first day, because it really was too big a crowd. It was too much pushing and shoving and kind of moving us about and prodding.
That's about the time the craziness started. Like
yeah.
Where CNN was there and everybody was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's
well, it was the year that Joss Whedon was introduced as the director of Avengers. He then rolled out Avengers on that first panel, and I was in the room for that, because so like I say, we were prodded, certainly Caroline was pushed around and prodded around, and she was just getting completely wound up. This was on the first day, on the Thursday, and she actually said at the end of that first day, "I don't think I can do this. I don't think this is actually for me." And my first thought was, we have traveled all this way, we kind of knew what to expect, and okay, this isn't for us. Oh wow, okay. And we actually took the Friday off. We went to SeaWorld and kind of we just took Friday out. And we came back on a Saturday a little bit more prepared. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we did Hall H, and we did the whole Simon Pegg and Nick Frost coming out for Paul. And
that's right.
We had stuff that surprised us. We had the first panel for Cowboys and Aliens.
When did you queue up on that Saturday?
First thing on Saturday morning.
What time?
About 8 o'clock in the morning, and we missed the first panel.
You know what? We probably were sitting very close to you.
Oh, there we go.
Me and Lewis. Seriously, because I think we queued up at around 8:30 that Saturday morning. Literally missed the first panel, stood out, and there was like one shoot that missed that first panel. We must have been in that same shoot
there
together.
You go. It's fate.
It was
it's
fate.
Destiny.
Well, it was so interesting, because here I was with a 10-year-old and seeing Cowboys and Aliens, seeing Harrison Ford come out on stage in handcuffs, and this 10-year-old was just like mind blown.
Yeah.
And then when he introduced the Avengers, it was just we had no idea that we could expect that. We had no anticipation. Did you have any anticipation?
Not at all. Not at all.
It was just was so new.
So it was definitely a case of firsts. And we then kind of we bit the bug, and that first year it was literally going to be a one-trip deal. Mm-hmm. It was going to be something that it was like I say, the centerpiece to our honeymoon. It was the bucket list thing that we attended Comic-Con. And then I had some spending money in my back pocket. I was walking through sales, and there's the ticket stand there for next year. Nobody stood at it. I'm just going, well, I've got $200 in my pocket. Let me just buy the tickets anyway. Let me just have them so we have them.
High five, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like,
so,
totally. Except
yeah.
mine was Sunday afternoon
Yeah,
when there was a long
that's what
queue.
It was. No, it was Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
It was and I was meeting up with Caroline in Ballroom 20. She was attending a Sons of Anarchy panel. And I just sat down and went, well, I've got tickets for next year if we want to. And it's just grown and developed from there.
What was Caroline's reaction when you told her?
She went, oh, that's good. Okay, that's fun. Yeah, okay, I'm up for that. And we have just then started growing and developing and sort of expanding because we came down to San Diego on that first day, on the preview night.
Mm-hmm.
And we went back the following, on the Monday. And every single time we've come to San Diego Comic-Con, we have stayed longer and longer and longer. And certainly, I think it was the third year we came, we stayed for 2 weeks because we ended up then just discovering San Diego as a city, and it is such a beautiful city. Mm-hmm. It's got that very relaxed vibe, that kind of coastal, sort of like sea air, just breezing in, and it's just once you kind of get away from the crowds and the madness of Comic-Con, it does become a very gorgeous city to explore.
It's definitely a big, small city.
Yes, very much so.
I guess this would be a good segue to, finding out how you got the seeds planted for starting an Englishman in San Diego and also Friends of Comic-Con. I guess we start with Alyssa, Friends of Comic-Con.
I started the Friends of Comic-Con, I believe, in probably 2011, in a story that I've told many times. When Facebook changed, they deleted a bunch of pages that I was using to refer other newer folk to people who had questions. And
that's when Facebook actually had almost like a forum structure to it.
Exactly.
And there was a definite community area.
Yeah, and you could really create a community and have a community, unlike these days, which it's a little bit more linear or non-linear. It's timeline focused, and it's way more difficult to keep track of things. And I like to have control over data, and be able to organize it myself, and be able to refer people to things so I don't have to keep repeating it. That led into, I think, Leonard, being aware of Leonard's Englishman in San Diego. He had started it, and I believe asked me to be on it probably in the first couple of months, somewhere in there.
Oh, but I didn't realize it was that early. Wow.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
No.
But I went back and I took a look at I recently had taken a look at some of the earlier episodes where I was on, and it seemed as though that it was fairly early in the process. Okay. And I certainly, my appearance has changed considerably over the years, and it was certainly in the a long time ago phase.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry. Before we continue, I sort of want to discover the why. Like, why did you start the Facebook in the first place?
Why did I start the forum in the first place? Because I'd always wanted to have a community, but I hadn't found what I wanted that community to be about. Perhaps I have skipped past a part of my training in anthropology, so I appreciate the time what makes a community. My study was in older communities, unlike current cultural anthropology. But in cultural anthropology, current things, it's all a study of how groups survive and how groups coexist. And one of the places, one of my earliest backgrounds was in the hippie community. And one of the things that was available to me when I was growing up was watching how organizations functioned. Early organizations like co-ops and communities that were working towards a common purpose, and how they fell apart. Because nobody wanted to follow the leader, and nobody wanted to, just to simply be the follower. And so I took all of this experience and put it together into a forum-based community such that people could do what they wanted to do without a lot of oversight by me, as long as they followed the basic tenets of let's work for the community, let's be respectful of other people, let's further the common good. And I call that working anarchy, and I take that phrase from my mother. And that's why I started the forum.
Okay.
Yeah, big pictures.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. For myself, it was... went to the first one in 2010. 2011, I wanted to kind of do a vlog. I wanted to document my journey, my road to San Diego. And I created the name An Englishman in San Diego. That's the DJ in me, because it is off the Sting track. It's a riff off the An Englishman in New York.
Got it.
So
okay.
that's
Makes sense.
I just took the title and ran with it. I did start finding out. I was a member of that Facebook group as well on the Comic-Con International page, and the same questions kept rolling around and the same answers kept rolling around. So I was kind of constantly glued to that page and helping people the best I could from the information that I was gleaning. At which point Alyssa started at the Friends of Comic-Con forum. I jumped on there as well. Certainly kind of tried to help as a moderator, failed miserably. I wasn't a very good moderator at all, because I just was too busy kind of interacting with the forum myself.
I'm smiling knowingly.
Indeed. But for 2012, I also started up the UK attendees group on Facebook.
Got it.
So that was my little kind of world, my little community.
It's a pretty good contingent that comes every year.
It's not too bad, is it? We've grown from 40, 50 in that first year to, I think we've got 300-400 members at the moment, if not more. It's been a while since I've really properly checked in, because I started the thing, but I've definitely taken a step back and just let it's not my group anymore by any stretch of the imagination. But it was a case of I was starting to get a lot of information myself, and I was combing the internet and combing different forums, and when people were asking questions, I was sometimes the first to get the answer in. So I thought to myself, well, okay, as well as this vlog, and this is, we're talking year progressions now. So that first year starting the vlog. Second year, it was a case of starting the UK attendees group and answering questions there. Next year, it was a case of, okay, well, if I'm getting all of this information in, tell you what if I just create a website where I can put all that information down, and then people can find that? And it was, the Englishman in San Diego. It was also the home for where I could put the vlogs as well. And it kind of backfired, because obviously you have to let people know about those posts. So I ended up then going out and sharing those posts to the forum and to everywhere else. So I ended up creating a rod for my own back, but it's one that I've enjoyed. But from there, the next year I went and I volunteered at San Diego Comic-Con because I wanted to give back. The year after that, because I did a half-decent job by all accounts, I ended up running one of the staff volunteering for that room, so I ended up running the room.
Which room was it?
This is room 2.
Oh, okay.
This is the Artist Alley how-to room upstairs, under the direction of Clydeen Nee, who's the person who runs Artist Alley for Comic-Con. Then it was attending as press, and it's just grown and developed. And I think that fourth year, myself and Alyssa appeared on a panel with Tony Kim about how to grow a nerd community and podcasting within. It's basically how to comment on Comic-Con, which it was at that point it was very inside baseball. It was I think it was the first panel that actually did that. Now we actually have panels where the podcasters do have space within the convention, which wasn't even thought of back then. And yeah, as each year's gone on, I've kind of taken the next step and gone up a notch and just gotten to speak to more and more interesting people and further up the food chain as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess sort of going backwards a little bit, what was sort of the impetus for you doing a YouTube live show? And how did you and Alyssa sort of come together for that?
Well, that was, for me, as part of me creating my little communities and my little side projects, one of the things that came up was Google+, which is a doomed social media, but very powerful social media. And it had as one of its features the ability to do live streamed YouTube shows, which people could then interact, and it would stream directly to YouTube. And I thought this was stunning. I thought this was revolutionary. Anyone could take part. Anyone could do this. Anyone with a laptop and a webcam, you could create a live show. So I created the San Diego Comic-Con forum on Google+, and as part of that, I then invited people on board to take part in the conversation. Alyssa was one, Tony was another, there was Katrina Dennis in there. There was a number of people that were... I tried to do a rotating guest list, except Alyssa, just like a limpet mind, just kind of attached and became my regular co-host.
I don't remember it that
There
way.
you go. Okay, fair enough.
Alyssa, would you like to give your version of history?
Well, I do remember Leonard trying to create the Google Plus community and being so occupied with my forum that I could not participate. I had no bandwidth left. But the meeting of minds on the Sunday show in a live interactive format appealed to me.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to work. And he kept asking me to come on, and
I think it was also I was surprised that in those early days that I was asking people pretty high up, punching way above my weight. And like David Glanzer was one of our first guests, right. And we kind of did a David Glanzer show, and we did a show with a couple of panel hosts that are known quantities, and the fact that I just came out and asked, I think they were just really flattered by it, and they came on. It certainly wasn't on a Sunday. It wasn't a set time or day. It was just whenever it was available and whenever we felt that we could just run it. And I'm trying to remember when we did that first Sunday show and called it A Cup of Tea, but no, that's. It
was A Cup of Tea when I started coming on it. Yeah.
And then I wanted to try and increase the metrics, so I called it Talking Comic-Con, A Cup of Tea with an Englishman. I tried to get Comic-Con in the title, but it's still working on that. Still working on it.
And thankfully, you got to listen on the show because I think you both balanced each other pretty well.
That's my thought. That's my thought, that we have a dynamic that works, that we're so different. I mean, I've phrased it to Leonard that he is he's the play-by-play guy and I'm the color commentary, but I'm not sure if that's entirely accurate or not.
It's near as damn it.
Yeah,
well, it's a description we'll go with. It's a description I'm happy with.
Yeah, which is good because I certainly couldn't do the play-by-play, and I think my strengths are in ideas and I hesitate to say deeper thinking, but I think that it tends, I tend to have those those big kind of concept ideas, and I think that's a good thing for the show, and I think it adds a dimension that might be missing in some other shows. I don't know.
Definitely. Now, how do you both plan sort of your content for the show?
I think what we do is we certainly look at the landscape of what's coming up. Say, for example, if there's a convention on the way that we can kind of get a guest on to kind of look forward to that. I mean, the shows kind of split themselves down. We either have theme shows, where we actually are tackling certain ideas and subjects approaching a convention. So, for example, the schedules, or the exclusives portal, or badge buying. And then we have the shows which are special guest shows, where we have people on which we interview. Mm-hmm. And then we have our live feed shows, where we have people with a smartphone and a half-decent internet connection and doing live reports from conventions, which I really enjoy because they allow us to be on the floor with everyone else, even if we are just sat at home.
Yeah, those are always fun, as somebody who's been a part of that as well. So,
I think there's also a fourth grouping of shows, and those are the shows that are in the January and Februarys. They're the, the prep shows, the food shows, these types of how to get ready and get ourselves ready for Comic-Con.
I think
what
those,
do we?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or you think those are part of?
I think those are part of that first themed episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all counts. I mean, for example, the food shows and the SDCC Fit ones, they come under preparation for a convention. So I count those as the themed episodes.
Okay, well then I'm going to add it as a and number 4.
One A. One A.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Because we have to do a script.
Yes, we do. I mean, we do have a script. It's mostly done by Alyssa, I'm not going to lie. Mostly because my weekends end up being incredibly busy anyway. Mm-hmm. I've kind of... Somehow I've managed to get myself into a position where my weekends start on a Friday afternoon. I do the DJing. I run around on Saturday doing whatever I need to do. I work on Saturday night. I get up on Sunday morning. I do hospital radio for 5 hours. I then literally sprint to where I record the hangouts. So no, my weekends end up being busier than. That's my working week. The 2-3 days of the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I look forward to 8-9 o'clock on Sunday night because that's when my week finishes. If you know,
that's the beginning of your weekend,
and that is the beginning of my weekend. Absolutely,
I understand it well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so.
Well, as a fan of your show, I just want to say thank you just right off the bat because I look forward to every Sunday to checking in and checking.
I like how Alyssa describes it. It's our weekly therapy.
Right.
I think that's...
No. I can't take credit for that. One of our fans mentioned that, but I definitely have co-opted it and hopefully made it more popular. Yeah. But yes, the weekly therapy session.
Just the ability to kind of come in and keep riding the wave of loving Comic-Cons and Comic-Con and yeah.
Being among like-minded folk
Sure.
that appreciate the same thing. It's an escape from our daily realities of paying bills and cleaning up the kitchen.
And thankfully there's enough comic conventions now, week in, week out, where we can have continuous content throughout the course of the year. I mean, I know that the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog, they run for 6 weeks leading up to Comic-Con. And that's what they do. It's that 2-month window leading up to Comic-Con. And in fact, I think they actually now start a little bit earlier now because we've kind of pressured them into doing so because we're now doing our show on a weekly basis. I mean, we take...
Well, yeah. I also think that it has to do with the unofficial blog is... they're focused solely on San Diego Comic-Con.
Sure.
Whereas we're focused on conventions across the U.S. and the U.K.
Yeah.
And we're focusing more on nerd and geek culture, and
rather than the one show, yeah.
And TV shows and comics and everything that goes into a Comic-Con and what makes us geeks, as opposed to just the one big party in July. Yep. Which is great, and I love the one big party, but it's a lifestyle, not an event.
That's just part of the story, basically.
Yeah.
In terms of advice for other content creators who are thinking about starting out, or even for us who are sort of been doing it for a while, what kind of advice can you give them?
You don't have to go in full bore. You don't have. You can really create anything from the most basic of equipment, and you don't have to go in and spend hundreds of dollars on equipment. You can do this really. I mean, it's like I say, the way I started and the way we started A Cup of Tea was using a laptop and just jumping in on this platform and creating something from there. I mean, yes, it took that we did some on-screen graphics for a while, and that takes some time because you end up doing something on Photoshop and you're working through it. Yeah, those graphics.
I hate graphics.
Well,
no, not your graphics, just graphics and. Excuse me, I know you're a graphic designer, Aaron, but I cannot. It's like so frustrating.
It's a marriage of art and science.
I understand this, and if I could use the art, the paintbrushes better, I would do it.
There we go.
No worries.
So no, you don't have to spend. I mean,
Yeah.
So I mean, I know some people who have gone around San Diego Comic-Con this year, and they've just taken their iPhone, they've gotten a $25, $35 Lightning connector USB microphone, downloaded a copy of Voice Record Pro, hit record, and just done some interviews. And that's 6-10 minutes worth of content which you can put up on SoundCloud or somewhere, and people will listen to it. If you find something that you're interested in and you're passionate about, then there's going to be somebody out there that's going to be even if it's 10. Oh yeah, I would also say that as well. Just don't think that you're going to go out there and instantly get tens of thousands of followers or anything, because that's not important.
No.
It really isn't. It's a case of finding an audience that loves stuff as much as you do, because the moment that you find them, they'll stick with you. And they'll grow from you, and they will spread the word and find others, and the audience will be there. It's just a case of, even if it's an audience of yourself, just be happy as long as you make it that you're happy with what you've done. If you can actually listen back to it and go, yeah, you know what, that's okay, I'm okay with that, I can put my name to that, then that's solid stuff. And from there it can only grow from there.
Alyssa, you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. From a slightly different perspective, Leonard's taking it more from the video and the content, whereas I'm probably more focused on building a community. And one of the basic premises of my community was that pay it forward. I'll do this for you, and you get back to me at some point with a something or a thing or a help me out in line or whatever. And a lot of people.
I think that's the difference between me and Alyssa. I've never ever gone from that perspective. I've never gone for the barter system. Yes, pay it forward, but I've never expected anything in return.
No, it's not so much expecting something in return. It's more along the lines of karma.
Okay.
Yeah, CON.
Not Godfather karma.
No.
No, absolutely. I mean, and I've had plenty of people who've come up to me and said, when you started this, I gave it 6 months. I didn't think it was going to work, and I'm surprised.
They really said that.
Huh?
They really said that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Because it is based on people doing for other people and creating things that they like, which is similar to what Leonard said of creating, you have to create what you want to create. And that's what I do, is I give people space to create what they want to create. And so that's some of the basic differences. What other advice would I give? Listen to yourself. Do what you want to do, regardless, as you were saying, Leonard, regardless of how many viewers you have. It doesn't matter, because if you do what you want to do and it fulfills you, then you are happy. There's something else I wanted to say too. Causality. Don't plan on where it's going to be in 3 years. Plan on where it's going to be in 2 months. And
2 weeks.
2 weeks, and work towards that.
I haven't got the attention span for 2 months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, so much of our culture is based on, these business plans, and, you need a 10-year business plan, and you need to be able to, map all of this out. And that's all crap. I just censored myself. I'll have you know.
I find it interesting you saying it, though, because at the end of the day, I know that we are all good friends with the Nerd Foo, who started out with a business plan. And I do try and wonder sometimes if that's the better plan.
Well, like all good business plans, you sort of have to have course corrections along the way.
Sure.
So you always account for that.
Right, and with organic growth, I think I cannot stress that enough. Let it grow organically, and let your audience determine the next step.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the next step, what's next for Cup of Tea SDCC?
Okay. Well, I mean,
Leonard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean the Englishman in San Diego title was something which I used as a linchpin slurp for my efforts.
Cheers.
There we go. Mine's empty.
I'll trade you. You can have mine.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Or give some to these guys too.
Giving beer away. What madness are you talking?
I just gave beer away, so you're calling me mad?
Fair
It's
enough.
not dark enough for.
No, it's not dark enough for me. I'm sorry. I like the porters and stouts.
So I created this a title because that's the convention I was going to. So it was my road to San Diego Comic-Con. But it's now boxed myself into a corner because I am now doing things with other conventions. And off the back of doing an Englishman in San Diego, I am now doing
MCM.
MCM. I'm doing panel hosting. Started out with a convention called MCon in Nottingham, which somebody who saw me on the Hangout knew that I saw that I could handle myself in front of a crowd and could handle myself in a conversation with a microphone in my hand. And it's a pure pop culture convention, so it's more like third Stormtrooper from the left kind of thing. Although that show itself has also grown to the point where they've got Nick Frost coming this year.
Oh, wow.
It's that kind of thing. So they asked me to come along and host their panels. Off the back of that, I then hosted panels for a show called ICE, which is one of the larger comics-based conventions in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Off the back of that, I then started hosting stuff for a show down on the South Coast called Meanwhile. Off the back of that, I was then approached to host now, as of this year, hosting the panels for MCM, which is the company which is one of the biggest convention organisers in the UK. Mm-hmm. They've recently been bought out by ReadPop, so they're bringing a lot more comics-based talent across. They're wanting to grow their comics talent at the MCM shows. And they've hired me on as the comics panel host for those shows. So
nice.
In 2 years, I've gone from interviewing a couple of cast members on the 100, a show which I've never seen in my life, to I'm going to be panel hosting with Frank Miller and Brian Azzarello and Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti. And I'm going to be doing that in October. And the fact that that's happened in 2 years blows my mind, absolutely blows my mind. So I've boxed myself in with the name An Englishman in San Diego. So basically, what is coming up next? There's going to be a slight name change with the weekly hangout. It's going to be Talking Cons. So basically, we're going to be taking that very problematic hyphenated term of Comic-Con out of the title. It's going to be Talking Cons.
Got it.
And it is going to be more towards the conventions. That's pretty much what we talk about anyway. But it is going to be more about the preparation towards comic conventions.
Conventions all across the country.
US, UK. So it's not just going to be about San Diego.
And we'd love to have people on from Asia
absolutely.
and any other countries out there.
I think they have one in Japan that's like half a million people.
Well, we've got the contacts. We've got the contacts.
Nice.
Yep.
That's kind of going to be part of the reshaping of the website as well, because, like I say, the name boxed me in. So I'm going to now be creating a new site, which is the Convention Collective.
Oh.
It's basically going to be the Convention Collective featuring An Englishman in San Diego. Mm-hmm. So it's taking it back to what it used to be, which was me in a vlog and just my opinion pieces and my little thing just in the corner. But the actual site itself is going to be about conventions. We're going to be stripping away all the pop culture coverage, because at the end of the day, I was putting that up because I was getting it as part of all the convention updates.
Right.
And I had this stuff, and I thought, well, I'll just put it on the site. Okay, let's take that away, because there's so much stuff you can talk about when it comes to comic conventions now. And you can create a site just about that. But there's been a couple of attempts out there by people, and they've just been a bit of a mess. And I think I wanted to try and create something which is a little bit more streamlined. So that's the plan.
Yeah.
That is at the end of the day, that's the plan.
Right.
Whether it'll work is a whole of the ball game, but I'm going to try.
No, I think it's a smart thing to do, because you're sort of segueing to sort of maybe you are making yourself the brand of.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, that's something that's been discovered this year, that people recognize me, which freaks me the hell out. But still,
even without the hat.
Even without the hat, it's got to be said, it massages my ego huge when someone actually does come up and ask for a selfie or whatever. But
tell me about it.
I know. It's
freaks
interesting.
me out.
It freaks me out, but it's still fun. It's fun, because at least then it shows that you are making a connection with an audience.
Sure.
So I've no problem with it. But like I say, I think I'm gonna keep the brand, because it is something that I've grown, and it's something that is established. But I'm going to pin it to a slightly bigger pinboard.
It's difficult rebranding. I think all three of us have gone through this rebranding problem. Yourself, Aaron, with the SDCC fit into Comic-Con fit. Myself with Friends of CCI into Friends of Comic-Con. But it's a necessary step to take. So it doesn't it doesn't surprise me at all.
Again, course corrections, right?
Of course,
Sure.
Absolutely. You've got to. And just as a point of fact, I did clear the name Friends of Comic-Con and was told, granted, this was a few years ago before the lawsuit, that would not be a problem, because it was distinctly not. We weren't trying to portray ourselves as associated or working for CCI.
I think that's.
So
I mean,
I think that's the point.
I didn't even approach CCI on this one, because I just felt that, even for myself, Comic-Con, that's San Diego. So it's not just San Diego we're talking about anymore. Let's take it out of the equation. So that's the reason for the name change.
Cool. Well, I look forward to.
Thank you.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. But
I'm certain so's my web server, who I'm no doubt is going to be getting a lot of questions about how I'm going to actually do this. But I'll figure it out.
There'll be a lot of 401 redirects.
Oh yes, lots of holding pages. Lots of this site is under construction.
Yeah.
But since you're still in town and San Diego Comic-Con just happened, I guess maybe we can talk about San Diego Comic-Con before we move on a little bit. If I were to sort of ask this or say the statement, fill in the blank. San Diego Comic-Con 2018 was the year of
The Whiplash. It was so fast. The changes were so immediate and also so major. The things that had been in place by CCI, the city, by the convention center, we're talking 5-year plans, and things have been in place, and they've been wanting to do stuff across the board. And in 2018, they all happened in one convention. So, I mean, I was walking towards the convention center on the Thursday, and there was a slightly older gentleman I was walking alongside, and he's just going, "This is just not the same show that I used to attend to. I've been coming to this for 29 years. And I'm going, yeah, anyone who attended this 2 years ago, this is a different show. This is a different convention to what it was last year. So while I appreciate those veterans that have been coming for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, they are in the same position as someone who came 12 months ago. It is such a different show, and the speed that things have happened, not only within the convention itself, but also in pop culture as well, in terms of Chris Hardwick, in terms of James Gunn. James Gunn, for God's sake. That change, that news dropping, that must have happened while he was in the car from the hotel to the convention center. He must have been fired en route, at which point that gives a sense of how fast this convention has been.
Mm-hmm.
This year it really has been on a dime. So for me, it's just been sheer whiplash.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Alyssa?
Transitions. It's absolutely a year of transitions. We're talking about the different CCI policies with the lines in the front of the convention center, the Lime scooters, and the Lime and Bird scooters. I think that's...
You almost fell on one of those, right?
I did. We did our final show before the convention started on the Sunday, and we were wanting to do it from the front of the Hall H sign down in front of the convention center, and we were running a little bit late, so we decided we'll get a scooter down each. At which point, just as I'm crossing from the Hard Rock to the restaurant on that corner, I caught one of the curbs, and yes, I did take a tumble. Did a real number on my arm, bruised it up lovely, and on my breast, I just basically rolled and really did a number on myself. But at the end of the day, that just taught me to be a little bit more careful on a scooter.
So it was a year of transitions, I think, for everybody. And I think if you took it as a transitional period, and you were able to roll with it and change your con up, I think you came out of it for the better. As opposed to, no, this wasn't the con that I went to. I can't get my exclusives. I can't.
If you came to it with the same plan that you did last year, then you were screwed.
You have to say the glass is half full, and you have to approach it that way and say, oh, wow, this is a cool party, or this is a neat offsite, or, you know, I think one of my forum members said to me, posted on the forum, I went to Hall H all 4 days, all 3 days, and I slept in my bed every night. You know, brilliant.
That's almost unheard of.
Yes, exactly. Isn't that a glass half full, brilliant, wonderful thing?
If it's going to stay that way, is a whole other ball game. But for 2018,
who knows? Yeah, who knows? But you got to roll with it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a motto for life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if anybody knows that, I know that.
Sure. Absolutely. I was curious to see how things were going to play out. And yes, as much as we were learning, CCI were learning as well. I think there's going to be plenty of conversations in bars and so like Olive Gardens between now and
I hope a little bit better than Olive Gardens.
Well, you know, they're a charity. They don't make any money.
Okay, I'm a food snob.
Fair enough. I know that. So no, everyone's still learning, and I think there was stuff that was introduced this year that, we're going to find out more about. I seriously hope that the front of the convention center stays as it was, because I thought that was just stunning.
I love that too.
That was just amazing. I'm wondering if it further alienated the locals and created more of a barrier between the convention and San Diego.
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see that.
We'll see that in November when when it comes up for a vote, when the expansion comes up for a vote. And this is just a call out. I did find out to any of the San Diego residents that October 23rd is your last date to register to vote. Make sure and please double check to make sure that you are on the voting registrar and that they haven't purged you. That's my public service announcement for the day, because we want the expansion to go through.
Yeah, go along that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Amen.
I mean, what was your take on it? Because I mean, you have a slightly different. Well, I think it's all four of us have a slightly different convention than the average convention attendee. And I think that you guys were bouncing around left, right, and center.
I think that's the beauty of something like San Diego Comic-Con. It's just so massive that there's something for everybody there. For myself, and especially for Alex too, he can speak for his experience. But for me, if I were to answer, San Diego Comic-Con 2018 was the year of, I would say Black Heroes Matter, just because we were so close to it. My friend Urias, who started the movement back in 2016, he was back again promoting and networking, and he would drop by the booth that we were working at, and we'd hang out for a little bit. We went to the Afrofuturism Lounge that was on Friday and Saturday. We went to the Flash Mob that's held every Friday at 6 p.m. in front of the Grand Staircase. So it was the year of Black Heroes Matter, and by extension, I think representation matters.
I loved your
Sure, go on,
T-shirt that you had Asian heroes
Oh,
matter.
yeah,
I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
Urace gave that to me last year.
Yeah.
As a parting gift.
It seems as though that there really has been a sea change. And I don't know if you guys feel that too, but along with the whole feminism, thing that's been happening, I think that there's also been a sea change in the people of color.
Sure.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, this is where I'm going to disagree.
Well, wait a minute. I'm asking
Sure.
him.
Well, I mean, you can see it in the wealth of panels that dealt with diversity. So I think that's a plus, definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad that my perceptions are accurate on that.
But
I desperately want them to be.
but the battle's still going on.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm going to disagree because I think the panels have always been there. LGBTQ have been represented. Minority panels have been represented in the past. Comic-Con has been one of the San Diego Comic-Con has been one of those shows that has had the space and the panel variety to allow for those shows and for those comics and those creators to have a voice. And they have been represented in previous years. I mean, I'm actually going to be posting something in the next couple of days because I know that, Alyssa, you feel that there's been a sea change, and I know that several people. I mean, certainly that they've been brought more to the fore by recent rises in in these movements.
I
but they've
understand-
definitely been there.
I understand why you're saying what you're saying. However, I think the subtlety of what has gone on before may have escaped you. There was I read a recent thing that said this 12-year-old girl wrote to her local newspaper and said, I object to what the announcer said about this parade. She said, the announcer said the Boy Scouts were the future leaders of the of America, and the Girl Scouts were just having fun. And that kind of dichotomy is so prevalent, and so many people don't see why there is a difference there.
But that's out in the wider world. At Comic-Con, there was the same amount of panels for diversity than there was last year and the year before.
There is such a prevalence of women being represented in a hypersexualized manner. And I think that stepped back with the characters like Faith and Ms. Marvel and these types of things, and the different heroes from other races.
Sure, I think maybe in the last couple of years, both Alex and myself, we've sort of been, by obviously our focus is with independent creators, and with that, putting the spotlight on independent creators of color. So we've sort of been more exposed to that. Like our good friend Keaton Jones, he's been spearheading with his Black Comics Day back in February. And so, I mean, while Leonard is correct that there is probably the same amount of panels, I think by Hall H not having as much of an impact, and also these other things going on, these offsites, and Comicsgate being sort of and a focus right now. I think that the impact of diversity at San Diego Comic-Con was just even that more.
The outside conversation has been stronger, highlighting that content. No, I agree with that.
So
you see that argument between myself and Alyssa right there, it's just bubbling under now. It's just we're going to turn into a full-blown catfight. And it's annoying, and it's really frustrating because she pulls hair. And I don't have much hair, so she really struggles.
But I'm wily and quick, and can hit hard.
Yes, but I've got the nails, dear. Anyway, moving on.
No.
Obviously, there's so many things that go on at Comic-Con. What are some things that you wish you could have done?
Oh, good God. I did an interview with someone just prior to con starting, and one of the advices I gave was, you're not going to see everything. Don't even think that that's going to happen. You're going to barely scratch the surface of the pimple of the backside of Comic-Con. It's unobtainable.
Sure.
And I barely scratched the surface this year. So parties, off-sites, everything. little tiny rooms, the pinball arcades, the gaming rooms, the Mez. I only went to the Mez twice.
Oh, wow.
If that. And I think even one of those was on the way through to something else. And there's just so much stuff. I mean, admittedly, this year was the first year I went to Hall A. This is the first year I went down the gaming rooms, the Xbox and the Microsoft. It's the first time I've been down there.
Oh wow!
In nearly 10 years, and I thought, well, okay, so I've done this now. Excellent. Moving on, and so it just moved on. There's just so much stuff, but I'm still glad of the stuff that I did do. That's the thing. Whatever you take out of Comic-Con is what you put into it, and I'm still happy with the amount of things that I saw and did. Even if it's even if it's like 5% of what you can.
What were some of the quick highlights that you can share with our audience? What were some of the quick highlights that you can share with our audience?
Good grief. Well, because I've been able to make a contact with the convention center, and because I won $50 or $100 worth of Starbucks coffee with the exclusive Comic-Con, the convention center. Chocolate last year.
Yeah.
I converted that, and the idea was, well, I'll tell you what, I will give $100 worth of coffee to the front of the Hall H line. At which point the convention centre themselves turned around and went, no, that's a lot of hot water, that's a lot of cream and a lot of sugar. That's a thing. That's going to turn into a thing. So no, we're not going to do that. And I went, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got some more of this convention centre chocolate.
Nice.
Do you want to give that away?
I saw the video. Yeah.
So I thought literally I was just going to go down to a room somewhere, load up a backpack full of chocolate, and just give it out to the front of the line. Except I then met up with the head chef. We met up with the entire team behind the convention centre, and we went down and we filmed it, and that it became a thing. And I was actually just handing out this chocolate, or we were helping hand this chocolate out, and I'm going, this is so weird. What on earth's going on? So that was a highlight. I think also something that's happened over the last couple of years, because the brand is starting to become more recognisable. 2 years ago, it was a case of when I went up to a booth, say for example BBC America, it was a case of me going, hi, my name is Leonard Sultana, I run a website called Englishman in San Diego, and then you go into a 5-minute pitch explaining what the site's about before actually getting to the meat of what you want to try and get out of the conversation. Last year, and certainly this year, it was a case of, hi, my name is Leonard Sultana, yeah, we know who you are.
Right.
And you go, I can skip that 5-minute conversation and actually have the conversation with these people. So when you do that and you say to Jeff Johns and Jim Lee and Dan DiDio and Ashley from Her Universe, and they're going, yeah, we know who you are. And you go, right, something's happened now, it's a sea change. So then it allows me to do more things, and that was definitely a highlight for me.
Cool.
In terms of actual content, WB, DC, that in Hall H, that was something else.
Alyssa, what was some of your highlights, and what are some things that you wish you could have done?
To be honest with you, I literally did not go into this convention with a plan at all. I looked at the programming, I looked at it for our programming show, and then I put it away, and I did not re-look at programming until probably Wednesday afternoon after the forum meetup breakfast. So I had no plan. So I don't know what I've missed, or what I should wish that I had gotten done.
Okay.
I will say that some of the one panel that I did go to was the 2001 Space Odyssey with the two main actors for that movie. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I loved that. I really appreciated that attention to a movie that was so pivotal and seminal from the late 60s. The other thing that I found particularly enjoyable was the tour, the backstage tour of the Jack Ryan offsite. I got to see the control room and how they actually did all of the VR stuff. That was absolutely brilliant. That appealed to the technician in me. And of course the meetups and seeing the friends. I think that if I had to say that I went into this convention with any one thing, it was to connect with friends, and by and large I did. There was one or two friends who were elusive. It's
Yeah,
never,
I mean, the
know.
amount of people you end up wanting to see and then missing.
Yeah.
I feel ya.
So Lauren Galloway.
I missed her this year.
20 seconds. First time I've met her ever. And 20 seconds in a press room line, and said we would connect afterwards, and then never saw each other again.
Yeah.
Lauren, I missed you.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just grateful that my forum members all come up to me during the hangouts and during the meetups, and like they all come to me. And it's like, oh, brilliant. I don't have to search people down, because I didn't wait in line. Yeah. Usually we meet up in lines, and I didn't.
People would try. Apparently, people tried to meet up with me, but I was too busy pinballing. So they saw the hat going through the crowds at speed, and sorry. Oh no, no, he's already gone. So yeah, if I missed anyone this year, I'm sorry.
I'd be remiss if I didn't broach sort of SDCC Fit and Comic-Con Fit.
Absolutely.
How has that benefited you?
Oh, sweet God, no.
We'll start with Leonard.
Yes. It went horribly wrong. It went horribly wrong. It went horribly wrong from November when I broke my wrist. It continued to go horribly wrong as my recovery on that happened, and then I'd say for the 2 months leading up to this year's convention, because I am just sat there in front of a computer, just typing out as much as I possibly can and doing what I can with the site, my SDCC Fit was appalling this year. Absolutely appalling.
I think what you may find is that when you dial back the pop culture aspect of your site...
No, because I'll fill it with something else.
Well, but what you might find is that something else that you fill it with requires a little bit more thought.
Maybe.
And you can do that while you're taking a walk.
Yep. That's there you go. There's an idea.
See how I wrapped that back around?
Yeah. I mean, heaven knows when people have been taking pictures of me this year, and I'm looking particularly heavy, and I'm thinking, okay, that's got to change quickly. So no, SDCC Fit, okay. Then the thing is, I'm not going to say it out loud, because every year I turn around and say I'm going to improve my SDCC Fit, and I never do. So I'm just going to leave it hanging there in the air as an idea that I want to improve.
There's two ways that people change. One is they say, I'm going to make the big change, and they keep that goal in mind, like I'm going to quit smoking, forever. Or they say, I'm going to quit smoking today. I'm going to go out for a walk today. Yeah. So you got to figure out which one you are and then start doing it.
True. However, with that in mind, and I know you're saying I'm going to do that today, I'm on holiday. And I'm on holiday until the 31st, which means I am going to be having that extra plate of fish tacos. I am going to be having the Mexican food tomorrow. Because I'm on holiday. Sod it. I don't care.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with setting a start date and gearing yourself up for it. That's one of the things with Weight Watchers is that, enjoy, if you've decided you're going to have that extra plate of tacos, enjoy that extra plate of tacos.
Yeah. So you did get some fish tacos then?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. I did.
Yes,
and I will continue to have fish tacos because I like fish tacos.
Yes, fish tacos are really good.
But no, I've been indulged. And certainly this past week, and I will continue to do so until I'm on the plane.
Of course, that's part of being on holiday.
Absolutely. I, due to emotional restructuring of my life the past 6 months, my SDCC Fit and Comic-Con Fit have fallen dramatically, and thank God for the little scooters. Because the Cortez is far enough away from the convention center, and it's got that wicked steep hill right at the end. It's like, brutal. So I really availed myself of the scooters. But unlike Leonard, I am more, used to riding a bike
There you
and a mountain bike and can, jump curbs and that sort of thing. So, and riding with traffic. So I managed to avoid getting any broken bones or any serious problems. However, I will suggest to people that since you've gone through a lot of activity during San Diego Comic-Con, that you try and work that through. The last thing you want to do is to do a lot of physical exercise and then stop. That's brutal. Just get out and go for a walk around the block or something just to keep that going a little bit, because you need it. Even I used to watch a lot of professional bike racing, Tour de France and the like, and even when they have a day off after riding hard in the mountains for 4 or 5 days, they'll take an hour spin, just a little spin to keep going. So that's the story that I'm telling myself to get myself on the treadmill. I was on yesterday, and I'm going to get on.
Good job.
I'm going to try it. Yeah. My on the treadmill is like for 20 minutes if I can do it.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can fit in like 20 minutes to half an hour before I go to work, that's a win in my book.
Yeah. And it goes back to what I was saying about the food, is anything you do is a win, Seriously. Congratulations.
I think that's great advice to be a linchpin for your
Clink. Absolutely, clink,
for your Comic-Con fit. There you go. Any excuse to keep drinking this beer. Thank you for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I do want to do a quick shout out. I am hopeful that Aaron and I will do something again in January in the off season with regards to a mystery box challenge.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Or a vegetable of the week or something of that nature, just to get us all thinking about what we eat and how important that is to us.
Definitely. I think even just me cooking a little bit more this year has helped.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the one that lost 15 pounds. I maintained from the same weight I was last year when I came home, and you lost 15 pounds.
Well, like I said,
we won't ask Leonard.
No, don't even go in this direction.
Okay, Alex, do you want to join in on this one?
Me and Leonard probably in the same boat.
Okay. Just checking.
Before we go to the Thunder Round, is there anything else you sort of want to talk about concerning San Diego Comic-Con?
I do want to say one quick thing. I spent more time in Artist Alley
Nice.
during this year's Comic-Con. It doesn't seem as large as some other, like ECC or NYCC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that is. Maybe because it isn't. But
it seemed like the Artist Alley, while the tables have shrunk, the artists themselves have got themselves dedicated booths. The illustrators area seemed bigger this year. I mean, my personal favourite artist is a guy called Kim Jong-gi.
Yes, I saw your picture with him.
Oh my god, that guy is a genius. He's got a booth. These magicians shouldn't have booths. What the hell? These are gods amongst men, for God's sake. They don't have booths. So it was. I felt that there was more individual space for artists that had created like dedicated display areas in an illustrator section. So I'm wondering if that's deliberate. I didn't know if that was something that I may be completely wrong. I maybe have been perceiving Artist Alley wrong all this time. But no, it seemed like there was more of the actual dedicated booths than the actual tables. I don't know if it's something that's been shifted.
Interesting.
One of the artists that I just wanted to call out was David Mack, a well-known artist.
I see the Kabuki book you got right there.
And I had an opportunity to overhear some of the things that he was talking to another patron about with regards to his work in Africa. I believe it was Africa, or war-torn countries where he was going and teaching kids a different way. of instead of practicing, picking up a gun, pick up a paintbrush and working with stuff. And I just wanted to. And as a result, I picked up his first book, Kabuki.
Well, it's the 20th anniversary of Kabuki.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the volume 1.
Yeah.
It's the first series, and primarily because I wanted to support an artist who was socially active and was. And David Mack is so gorgeous anyway. Well, I mean his work, I mean, is just, if you take a look at any of his pages, I would dearly love to be able to afford a piece of his original artwork, but it's way beyond my means.
Cool. I guess before Thunder Round, since you talked about an artist, we'll go to our Artist Alley segment where we sort of recommend a comic book or pop culture creative that you'd like our audience to know more about. Leonard.
Well, I mean, I spoke to about Kim Jung-gi, who I really would recommend. He's not so much in terms of comics. He is definitely more an illustrator.
Sure.
He's known more for the mainstream comics reader as the guy who created a 8-piece connecting variant set for Civil War II, the Civil War II event that Marvel did about 2-3 years ago. This was a piece which is a signature work of his, which large board, anything from 8 foot to 6 foot, and he goes straight to paper, no pencils, straight with ink, and with highly detailed art pieces. How on earth he keeps it in his head, it's just remarkable. So that's certainly somebody I would recommend. I was really glad to finally get to see Bill Sienkiewicz and his booth.
Yeah, he had a booth there.
Because he had a booth at Comic-Con. He had his original artworks up on the walls, and it's masterclass stuff. The man has a long and distinguished history in comics, and it's earned. It's deserved, and it was a joy to actually see these pieces for real and up there on the side of his booth, and to meet the guy, which was fun.
Nice.
Okay, that's in my wish I would have done that.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, no. I just
You do look at the you look at the Alex Ross booth and you think, okay, Bill Sienkiewicz deserves to be on there, and Alex Ross deserves to be on there.
I'm not. I mean, I don't dislike Alex Ross. I just am not. I'm not as fond of the commercialism.
Yeah, I go along with that.
I finally got some Alex Ross art.
Okay.
Nice.
The keychain.
I got one of the free giveaway posters, but there's somebody else in the UK that wants that. So.
I did get some Mondo posters.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
my weakness.
I'll wrap this section up with that recommendation. And there's Matt Taylor, who was the guy who did the artwork for the souvenir guide this year. That's the piece that was also the first Comic-Con International
souvenir.
The exclusive that was released.
Right.
Okay.
And it's the Mondo print.
Got it.
It was his first time in the UK. First time at San Diego. He was a featured guest. He had a spotlight panel. He was fated like a lord at this one. And
I'll pull it out. It's right. I'll pull it out in a moment. As soon as we're done.
And it was so much fun because I met up with him a couple of times, and he was just like, and he bumped into Sergio Aragon's in the lobby of his hotel, and Sergio knew who he was because of the poster, and he said, "I'm a massive fan of your work." And apparently Matt Taylor had to say, "Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to have to go now," before he turned into a gibbering wreck in front of Sergio Aragon. And apparently he was doing that all week. There was
I would love to have seen that.
And he was just meeting his heroes and just absolutely losing his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So no, Matt Taylor, I'm a huge fan of his, and I think everyone else should be too.
Cool. I guess I'll give a quick shout out to my friend Keithan Jones. He just celebrated his birthday. We went out last night. So
cool.
Happy birthday to you, sir.
Yeah. So Alex, I guess you can maybe give an artist for Artist Alley, and then maybe start with the Thunder Round.
All right. I'll give two. Christy Zulo and a guy from Sacramento named, he goes by Newligan. Both of them had their illustrations converted into actual DC sculptures, and they were exhibited at the DC booth. Chrissy did a Wonder Woman, and Newligan did a Nightwing. So it's pretty cool seeing the transition from an illustration to a 3D sculpture.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. All right, and then go into a Thunder Round. First question, real easy: King Kong or Godzilla?
Godzilla. Alyssa?
Godzilla.
Godzilla. All right.
I'm not gonna. I don't go fast.
Okay, this is going to be interesting. Go on then.
All right, next question. If Jack Kirby were still alive, what would you ask him?
No, I'd just ask him how on earth he did those pages at that speed. Because it just poured out of him. I'd just like to know how the hell he did it.
How much do you charge for a sketch? I'm brutal.
Well, I mean, that's one of the stories I've been sharing. Because we're at the El Cortez, he featured it at the 1975 one.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
Do you want to do it?
No. I understand that he did not really charge for sketches, but that's the point. Is will you do me a sketch, please?
Yeah. He'd be probably hanging out at the pool and you buy him a
did.
drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on.
All right. What 3 movies could you watch over and over again, not get tired of?
Close Encounters. Network. Last Starfire.
Nice.
Classics.
Interstellar, Arrival, and probably The Martian.
Cool.
All right. If you could
I could do classics too, but
Ask us that question in 5 minutes. It'll change completely.
Oh, totally. I mean, because
that's the beauty of that question.
If we were going to go back, it'd be Planet of the Apes, 2001. Those types of ones. Go ahead. Yeah. From what decade? You need to refine that question. You see, this is the host in us coming out. We're going to tell you how you should run your
Not
at all. Go for it.
All right.
Yes, we will.
Next question: If you could moderate a panel at San Diego Comic-Con, using anybody from present day or from history, what would your panel be about, and who would be your panelists?
Hitchhiker's Guide, Douglas Adams. If I could spend any time with that man at all. And not only that, but I wouldn't even have to open my mouth. It would be amazing. He would just keep going. Douglas Adams.
That's like me with Arlen Schumer.
Yeah. I didn't even have to think twice on that one. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because we mentioned Kirby earlier, but I just am fascinated by what went down at Marvel Timely Comics in the early 60s between him and Stan Lee, because it's so much he said, she said at this point, and that would be interesting. I mean, we've had a lot of people commenting on what happened then, but I'm a historian. I like the history stuff, so it would probably be along those veins.
Cool.
All right. A new probe is being launched to explore deep space. What kind of music would you add to its golden record?
KLF.
A little bit of everything. I would. No, I go heavy on the jazz, not the jazz. I hate jazz. Sorry, heavy on the blues. Start probably, not Robert Cray. Well, Robert Cray, but Robert Johnson, Eric Clapton, B.B. King. I'd probably do a lot of the serious guitar. Old time guitar blues guys, but I would go also with a lot of the modern, a lot of modern stuff. Even throw in some classical. I listen to everything. I just recently traveled across country, and it was amazing to me the variety of music that I listened to, and I might even try karaoke at some point.
Well,
I
know a good place.
Oh my God! Yeah.
When I was putting these questions together, I kind of thought, what would I say? And I probably would have said Vivaldi I'd put Merle Haggard,
Oh,
and then I would put I'd put Danger Mouse's Grey album, which is like a mash of the Beatles and Jay-Z.
yeah.
So.
No, that would be fun. Oh, that would be. I'd like to listen to that one. Actually, that sounds really fun.
No, see, I didn't realise there was going to be a variety of stuff I could put in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to share the KLF with anybody, but okay, Kraftwerk.
Oh, nice. I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, Kraftwerk. Daft Punk.
Cool.
The mashups.
Metallica.
You got to get some AC/DC in there too.
AC/DC in there.
Absolutely.
Early in excess. Okay, we could just look. Okay, I'm a DJ. You're a music lover. We could just go on and on. Okay, next question.
No, I'm not a music lover. I just worked in the business for years. That's all.
Go on.
Last question. Let's pretend we are in Star Trek when the food replicators are being developed. What dish would you want to be added to it?
Chicken tikka masala.
Oh, nice.
Because it's one of the hardest things to do right.
There's too many choices. You can't do this to me.
We'll give you 3. How's that?
Oh, yeah, remember, she's a foodie
Yes.
and a half.
Yeah. Probably. I know this sounds so simple, but to do a good bowl of poke is really, it's. I could eat that all the time. A good Italian pasta sauce. Yeah, you got to have that on pasta. That's garlic. And from another, probably kasha and onions, buckwheat and onions, or something, a grain based, like a nice hearty oatmeal.
Anything that doesn't involve kale. I think we'll move there. Yeah, there we go.
Well, I mean, you're talking comfort food here. If you were to go for some of the fancier stuff, like a really nice, well-done pot roast in the middle of winter, there's nothing.
Fair enough. But that's what we'd add. Okay?
Cool. I guess the next session we'll do is superhero shout-outs because we can't do this by ourselves sometimes. Who do you want to give thanks this week or for this episode?
I'm going to say thanks certainly to Alyssa for all the hard work and support that she's shown on the Hangouts when I haven't really felt motivated to do them, and she's carried my tired ass over the line.
Likewise, Leonard.
Well, yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, you carried my butt this past month with everything that I've been going through.
Okay. I'd certainly like to thank Dan Berry and Mark Serby because while I've been working on the background stuff and getting everything in place, he's just been hard at work putting stuff on the site and keeping the site alive. So those two, and Mark Serby for coming on the Hangout. Because he's just been a godsend. Always a lot of fun to have him on. And to my wife, who is the ultimate superhero.
Definitely.
She is just... How on earth Caroline puts up with me is beyond me, but she is absolutely my Wonder Woman.
Nice. Alyssa.
Having been roommates with Caroline and Leonard for the past 3 weeks, I'm just going to kind of leave that hanging, but agree with you. Caroline is wonderful. Caroline and I have gotten to be more friends over the course of this past 3 weeks, so I do appreciate her more and more. I have to give a huge shout out to my co-admin, Joan Pare, of the forum, who keeps the forum up and running. Without him, it would not... it probably would have fallen into disrepair years ago. TJ for all of her hard work, and Kevin for all of his hard work with the FOCC blog. And then, of course, Devora and Zero for their moderation and dealing with people on the forum who sometimes in the middle of the convention decide that now is a good time to blatantly and flagrantly disregard all of the forum rules and post something that's So thank you, Devora, for doing a moderator. And as Leonard said, thank you, Leonard, for carrying me this past bit of time, because this has been one of the hardest things that I've had to go through. The moving across country and changing upheaval of my life, and I appreciate your latitude in giving me the space that I need to grow and change. And because that's the key of the Hangout going forward, is going to be, it will change, but hopefully it'll stay, the core of it will stay the same, and will still be the geek therapy session on Sunday mornings.
Or Saturday evenings, as it is for me.
Oh, sure, whatever, however it works. I don't care. It doesn't matter when it happens.
Yeah.
You know.
And of course, to you two.
Thank you.
To Aaron and to Alex for being the linchpin of many communities here on Comic-Con. Oh, yeah, sorry, even I completely forget.
Clink,
Linchpin,
clink,
sorry.
Clink,
sorry.
clink, clink.
That wasn't even deliberate. Good God. No, but no, to you two for. I mean, you join certainly the Nerd Foo and a number of other podcasts that do bring us under one umbrella, and I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, enough backslapping. Excellent.
One last. I mean, I like Nerd Foo, who I sort of reached out when we were thinking of starting a podcast, and gave me. I mean, Sully gave me a whole slew of like links and information. I mean, I thank him, from the bottom of my heart for being such a supporter. But for you two, I mean, it is a weekly thing that I look forward to, and I'm honored to be part of it on occasion. But what you two have done with the Hangout is incredible, and I appreciate it very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Onward and upward. We're
Exactly.
We're not at the top tier yet. There's stuff we've got in the pipeline.
Nice.
We are continuing to grow and evolve. So, whatever you think of the podcast right now, it's going to be bigger and better as we move forward.
But I also want to encourage people to give us positive feedback.
Oh God, yeah.
About what they like and what they don't like.
One of the titles to the podcast was going to be, I debated calling it the Round Table. Mm-hmm. Number one, because of the whole King Arthur. So like the British connection. I was thinking about, but then I thought, well, that's going to blow my metrics completely out of the water. Got to keep Comic-Con in there somewhere, or cons in there somewhere. But that's something else. The thing I love about the podcast in its current form, it is absolutely a round table. It is where anyone who has got an interest in con culture and pop culture can rock up and just take part in the conversation. I'm going to be absolutely doing my best to pay more attention to the Q&A and have people contribute to the conversation, because it's your show. We are just squatters in front of the microphone. It's the audience's show,
and that's why we need to hear what works and what doesn't work.
Absolutely,
because it's as Leonard has fond of saying, it's all about you. It's all about the listener. That's why we do it.
I guess that's a good way to end the show. Thank you so much, Leonard and Alyssa, for coming on.
Thank you for joining us in our home.
And bringing beer.
Yeah, definitely.
Even though it wasn't dark beer.
Next time. On the next podcast, okay.
How about the San Diego, what is it, Nerd Night San Diego next week?
What is that, every Tuesday?
First Tuesday of every month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you will. I wish you weren't.
Yeah.
I guess we'll go ahead and close out the show. Alex?
All right, thank you for listening to the Hall H Show podcast. So we love putting the spotlight on some of our favorite pop culture and comic book content creators like Leonard Sultana and Alyssa Franks. They're both great resources for Comic-Con going beginners or veterans. If you ever have found value on their weekly YouTube live show, please consider supporting it on Patreon. If you find the Hall H Show podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify, and our website, hallh.com. If you believe in our mission to be the voice of independent creators. We would appreciate a rating and a comment on iTunes, and please spread the word on social media using the hashtag #HallShow. So peace, cheers, and please make it a point to visit Artist Alley at all the conventions you plan on going to this year, and don't forget to get Comic-Con fit. Thank you,
Peace,
folks.
cheers. Talk to you later. Bye.